All right, check the mic. We're live. I know there's overtime going on right now, Rams and Seahawks, but we got to get in here right now. We'll talk. It'll be like a little watch along here, Sam. Talking Week 9 in the NFL. I'll say it every week. Another wild week in the NFL. Where do you want to start, Sam? I didn't set you up.
Uh, no, I guess. Well, let's start with the Dallas Cowboys. That's America's team. That's the headlines. Jerry likes it that way. So the Dallas
Shout it.
Cowboys lost, and they stink. They stink. Probably
Dallas
exactly what
stink.
Jerry would like to know.
This is a despicable Dallas Cowboys team. Do something shouty. Do something crazy reaction. I mean, it got even worse. The Cowboys fall to 3-5. Falcons got the win. They moved to 6-3. We mentioned on the preview show the Bucs are their biggest contender in the South. They've got Kansas City tomorrow night. They play the Niners next week. The Bucs. Every time the Falcons stack a win here, they're just separating themselves even further from the Bucs in the South. And for Dallas, it just gets worse and worse, man. They're 3-5. Dak got hurt. They were checking out his hands, but he came out with a hamstring injury. So he's doubly hurt, presumably. And even at the end, CD Lamb got a little hurt. I don't think it's anything too bad. But yeah, Dallas continues to just fall apart every week.
Well, Lamb hurt his shoulder on that play where he dived in the end zone. Looked pretty painful at the time. Jerry Jones is hopeful he'll be fine simply because he went back in the game. But as we know, adrenaline, etc., swelling, who knows what that's like tomorrow and the next day and next week. So I wouldn't be 100% sure that Lamb is going to be playing, particularly if Dak's out as well. It might just be, Jerry's still saying he has full faith in everybody in the room. But, if they don't have Dak Prescott, if CeeDee Lamb's hurt, their season is almost toast already.
I'm going to give a little bit of commentary as we go here. Not play-by-play, but the Seahawks receiving the overtime kick here. It's a watch-along, Sam. We're just practicing the whole watch-along. How about the Baltimore Ravens? Just a dominant outing. We mentioned on the preview show, it seems like when you stack up the good teams against the Ravens, nobody has knocked them down except for the Chiefs. Like the Ravens, right? The Ravens, when they face the team, a 5-3 Broncos team, they make them look like a 1-8 team, and they did that today, 41-10, with another emphatic win for the Ravens.
Yeah, I think it's when the Ravens show up and they're playing their better football, they just look unstoppable. Like it looks like an absolute juggernaut. That Denver defense had been really good, and it couldn't do anything to slow down Baltimore. Everything was working. Again, this has been the story of the Ravens when it's all on song. And they did this without Deontay Johnson making a big impact. He's only just arrived there. Obviously, isn't a significant part of the offense yet. I think he only had a couple of snaps here or there. But, Zay Flowers in the slot, they couldn't contain both in terms of letting him catch the ball and then letting him run through the rest of the defense. Once he'd done that, they just look like a force. Like the Ravens, when they're cooking, Lamar Jackson playing out of his mind again, accurate, good decisions. They look unstoppable if we hadn't already seen them be stopped by the Cleveland Browns a week ago, by the Raiders randomly earlier in the season, and then, as you said, by the Chiefs, who are currently the only undefeated team in the NFL.
Another Lamar game. I don't know what the parameters are for a Lamar Jackson game, the stat line, but you just know it when you see it. And it's just uber efficiency on a low number of attempts. And that he did that again, 16 of 19 for 280. That's almost 15 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, no picks. And, of course, the perfect passer rating. Huge gain by Jackson Smith and Jigba. Is that getting – there's a flag. Is that getting negated, or is that are they declining that? Jackson Smith and Jigba has over – yeah, it was offsides. Over 100 – he's up at 170-something yards, and he had another 70 yards negated by penalties. Smith and Jigba making it look like the Rose Bowl against Utah right now.
Yeah. No, he's had a lot of yardage taken off his stat sheet in this game because of penalties.
Yeah, he's up to 180 on 7 catches, had a legit 72 yards negated by 2 penalties. So Seattle's in field goal range and potentially in game-winning touchdown range. What a wild game this. Always the Seahawks and the Rams with the wild games. We joked last week that the Bills clinched the AFC East. They may have really done it today. 30-27 over Miami, 7-2 the Bills record now, and Miami falls to 2-6. But they gave it a good shot, man. This was like last year's Dolphins team. They just came up a little short.
Yeah, Scott Hansen was saying on Red Zone there is a scenario where the Bills can clinch this month, which is, pretty impressive in and of itself, like clinching in November.
Okay.
But yeah, this was, for all practical purposes, this was clinching the division. Miami, it's unfortunate because the last 2 weeks, like Tua coming back completely changes everything about this team. They are legitimately tough to beat. It's just that they're already too far behind. And this is why they won't rescue it, right? Because even when you play them tough, even when you have a really good game, Tua looked fantastic in this game. You're going to come off on the wrong end of a couple of these close one score type of results, right? It was a 61-yard field goal, I think, to win it for Buffalo. Like,
Yep.
that's the margins, even against a really good team. So even if they're able to play at this level every single week, they're going to lose a couple of those games, and they've already done that in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's the tough part for Miami. I mean, like last year, we were still asking those questions. Can you beat the Ravens? Can you beat the Bills? Can you beat these good teams? They fell behind by so much without Tua for a few weeks, and then tough loss last week against the Cardinals and another tough one with Buffalo. I didn't see who said it in the chat, but man, like Tua scrambled on a 4th and 3, dives for it head first, and we're all just like holding your breath watching Tua for the hopefully not taking another big hit.
Leading with the head after his concussion history is just terrifying. I mean, we're talking about this guy. He's talking about it himself, like needing to have an understanding of protecting himself and playing smarter. And that's a playing smarter thing. I understand it was a fourth, it was a key down, but you didn't need to go head first on that play. You didn't Drake May is doing that right now, right? But he's one concussion in his rookie season. Tua is being urged to retire from half of football, and he's still out there leading with the head. That's not going to go well.
Seahawks have a 4th and 1 in Rams territory. They're lining up to go for it here, Sam. Where are you on the stream?
I mean, like a couple of seconds behind you, maybe.
And they're gonna get stuffed on 4th and 1. So
and that was easy field goal range, not
easy field
goal.
Remember, a field goal still gives the Rams the opportunity to match it. They can win it with a touchdown. The goal here is we're trying to get the touchdown to win.
Why would you go for that, but not the 2-point conversion before the end of regulation?
Yeah, if you want one play to win, they had the game tying.
You didn't win then either because the Rams still had 50 seconds or whatever it was. But if they didn't get it, like they didn't, you win the game.
Man,
that's strange to me. I don't understand why you go for one of those but not the other.
So it's 2020. Rams taking over after the failed 4th and 1 for Seattle here. In the 4 o'clock hour, we saw the Lions just really impressive, 24-14 over the Packers. Heavy weather game. They got up early. Turning point for me. I mean, I think that this was pretty obvious. I mean, it was 10-3. Jordan Love, the pick 6 that he throws to Kirby Joseph. Jordan Love playing hurt. You could tell he didn't have the right mobility. And look at Tyler Johnson making plays. But the pick 6 by Kirby Joseph, nobody could catch a ball. And somehow he makes sure that this little screen pass sticks in his hands, takes it for a pick 6. That really was the play for that. Made the Lions. They were up a few scores for most of the game because of it.
Yeah, I mean, that was obviously the big turning point of the game, but generally Detroit looked fantastic. I mean, also, remember in college, Jared Goff had a complete disaster of a game in a bad rainstorm. I forget who it was against, but it's like Jared Goff and his 9-inch hands. Like, look, if he has to play in weather, it's game over. No chance. And the Lions had some ridiculous run. Like, this was their first outdoor game, I think, of the season.
Yeah, 1 out of 2.
Have another one.
They have one more.
They don't have another one for weeks.
Yeah.
So it was like one game, and it was going to be in Lambeau, outdoors in the pouring rain. Like, this was tailor-made for Jared Goff to turn back into a pumpkin. And oh no, his small hands, he still can't throw the ball. He's out there with the 2 gloves, like Teddy Bridgewater, Teddy 2 gloves. And it didn't make a difference. He was still basically perfect. The ball went exactly where he wanted to. He was able to fizz it out to Amon-Ra Brown for the touchdown. Jared Goff looked great again, as did the rest of that offense. Jahmyr Gibbs, so dynamic, so explosive. David Montgomery, just a bludgeon by comparison, just a sledgehammer. Iced the game at the end when the Packers were trying to execute a comeback. So impressive by particularly Detroit's offense, but the defense did its job as well.
All right, I won't spoil anything. I won't spoil anything for anyone else. Look, I thought Jared Goff put all that to bed a couple years ago. They had the rainstorm against Washington. It was either his last or second to last year against with the Rams, and he was pie throwing. Remember, Sam, he had the pie throw. They could barely grip the ball. he had the ball resting on his hand
Right.
when he threw it, and he threw a big time throw right to Robert Woods. I said, Jared Goff could throw in the rain. He can do it. He can do it. But look, Lions are a good all around team, Sam. Like, we're still going to bring up Aiden Hutchinson for the rest of the year because, look, I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of times that Jordan Love had very clean pockets. Oh my goodness. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Nothing happened in this game. Wild game.
You're only a couple of seconds ahead of me. I don't know how much further ahead we are than everybody else.
Hey, Demarcus Robinson, man. Dude, he's become an absolute player for the Rams these last 2 years. Remember, Demarcus Robinson was the guy who Demarcus Robinson touchdown. Walk-off win for the Rams, 26-20. Don't even need to kick extra points or anything. Unbelievable finish. Matthew Stafford in stride to Demarcus Robinson. One-handed catch for the win. So Rams get the win. That makes the Arizona Cardinals right now, they are in sole possession of first place in the NFC West. Sole possession of first place, if I'm remembering correctly. At 5-4. Impressive win by the Cardinals against the Bears. Every time, I get the 4-box going, Sam. Every time I look up, Caleb Williams getting sacked. He's in the fetal position. I mean, they had the Bears offensive line. They had the pass protection in shambles this entire game.
Yeah, the Cardinals look good. Like, remember, we were both out on them on the basis that they'd had 2 consecutive pretty good games looking impressive. And you're like, there's no way they string 3 of those together. And they did. They looked fantastic. The defense was just absolutely destroying Chicago. The Bears' offense right now, I think, is very easy to throw into chaos if you can start to take advantage of them a little bit. Then suddenly, like, I think Caleb Williams, a little bit like Bo Nix, like, he's doing this as well sometimes, where those guys are right on the edge of like wanting to just revert to bad habits all the time. And if you can knock them out of like the cadence early in a game, they just run back to what they know, which is playing in that kind of chaotic way. For Caleb Williams, it's just trying to make everything happen, dancing around until something opens up. For Bo Nix, it's like get on his bike and start making plays running around, right? Like positive scramble plays. Bo Nix hasn't done that for a while. I think maybe he's gotten a better handle of it the last few weeks. But Caleb Williams is like just right there ready to do it. I was telling you, he's like the nightmare scenario that people that didn't love Patrick Mahomes or that were questioning him as a draft prospect came up with. Like, what if Mahomes can't play within structure at all? What if he's just this sandlot football player that we saw at Texas Tech a lot? What does that look like? I mean, it looks like Caleb Williams right now, right? That's what he is. He's like a pure sandlot player that cannot stay within the confines of the offense for more than like 5 minutes at the start of the game if the defense he plays is good and is able to disrupt their sort of script.
I kind of agree. I also think, Caleb's been trying to play within structure for the majority of the season. It looked like they had turned a corner a couple of years ago, or a couple of weeks ago. But this was like the Houston game where there was no rhythm because you got to credit the defense and the inability to pick up any sort of pass rush. Any sort of blitz. Cardinals did it, man. They met, and they also, I mean, they just dominated both. This was the most impressive game from the entire Cardinals team that I've seen. They ran like crazy all over the Bears. I mean, it was also, perspective's everything, but the Bears giving up a 53-yard touchdown with seconds to go in the first half when the Cardinals are just running the clock out. I mean, from one perspective, good job, Cardinals. They ran like crazy all over the Bears. And the other perspective, the Bears just looked overmatched from a coaching perspective. Just everything was awful in that game for them. I just want to make sure we properly put a bow on the Lions, man. They were awesome. They have the ability, again, every week. I'm happy for Jared Goff. Everybody's talking about Jared Goff. But think about it. I mean, you have like a little check down to David Montgomery, and he's juking 4 guys to go pick up the game-ending first down. You have Jahmyr Gibbs with another long touchdown run. They just have so many guys to cover. Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? They haven't thrown Goff hasn't thrown an incompletion to him in 30-something passes. So many good playmakers. Lions can win in so many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, Goff's average depth of target in this game was like under 4, so there was a lot of work being done from other people, but it is worth noting that he played pretty well despite sort of some adverse conditions.
Never know what my mic's picking up. I don't know if you can hear any crying babies or crying kids or anything like that, but we'll grind through. John loves predicting a Lions-Ravens Super Bowl. I would say it would be an awesome game if it was Lions-Ravens. I think we mentioned this last week. Would love that matchup. We'll see what happens. Again, two teams that took care of business, look like two of the best teams. Don't forget undefeated Kansas City, still here, still undefeated, and playing tomorrow night. Anything else from this slate? I mean, there was the Drake May touchdown with no time left against Tennessee. It was an exciting moment just for a rookie quarterback, even though he has the game-ending interception in overtime. And man, on our show notes, our like little show notes for the instant reaction, I was like, the Philly implosion. If Philly implodes here, that would have been a massive story. Still might be a massive story. Nick Sirianni, they were talking about on the broadcast, giving up extra points and going for 2 a million times, and they almost blew that game against Jacksonville with an 18-point lead.
Yeah, they gave it a pretty good shot. And it required driving with a chance of winning it. So yeah, that very almost got away from them. The other thing that we said we had to mention was Bryce Young. Bryce Young, that's probably the best game he's played in the NFL. That's probably the best version of Bryce Young since college, since Alabama. Now, the Saints are becoming the new Panthers, right? Like you have to throw the asterisk in for it was against the New Orleans defense, which is banged up, not playing well. And at this point, what is it, 7 defeats on the bounce? Look like they pretty much checked out. So you have to at least throw that out there as a caveat. But that's the best version of Bryce Young we've seen, I think, in the NFL. And okay, the numbers don't look great, but his interception was one of the best throws he had in the game. And the guy just took it away from Xavier Legette down the sideline. He had another really nice throw that got dropped as well. His performance was significantly better than those numbers.
Yeah, so I was going to read the stat line to it. 16 of 26 for 171, 1 touchdown and a pick, passer rating of 77.6, as you mentioned. His 2 best throws, similar corner routes, put it right on the receiver's hands. David Moore dropped one. I don't know who it was on the interception, but one of them was picked, one of them was dropped, right? So it's pretty much like take away an interception, tack on 40 yards, and make him 18 of 26 for 230 or something like that. Completely changes your perspective. Just those 2 throws, but overall comfort level and watching Bryce Young, he didn't look overwhelmed. The last 2 weeks have been huge strides in his favor. And look, last week was against a tough Denver defense, as we mentioned. It wasn't all great, but it was better. It was a good couple weeks for Bryce Young.
Yeah, like this, I think was honestly the first time really in the NFL where he hasn't looked completely overwhelmed. Like you saw some plays where even when he took off and started making some, ad-lib stuff, it was calm. It had more poise to it than anything we've seen so far, where usually when he's running, it's like, oh no, the play is dead and it's panic mode. This was a lot more reassured, a lot more poised, and a lot more impressive. Again, against a terrible defense right now, but minimum, it's notable for the Panthers, right? Who seem there's no motivation now to not see what Bryce Young can do for the foreseeable until the wheels fall off if they do. But the last 2 weeks have been encouraging steps in the right direction.
All right, Sam, I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on today. I think storyline-wise, though, heading into this week, the trade deadline's Tuesday. An election and a trade deadline Tuesday. There was already reports coming out Friday that some teams were like on the cusp. Let's see what happens before we find out if we're buyers or sellers. The league now has several teams with 1 or 2 wins, right? You've got Tennessee, who's already sold off some pieces, Carolina and the Saints both sitting there with 2 wins. Giants have 2 wins. It's going to be an interesting few days to see if there's that last piece. And then you have, just off the top of my head, teams like Houston, who just lost their left guard, who was struggling blocking anybody anyway, Kenyon Green due to injury. Is there a guard on the move? Kansas City's been rumored to maybe be looking at Marshawn Lattimore at corner. It's going to be an interesting week just to see if it doesn't even have to be big names, but starters might be on the move here. Only a couple more days to do it.
And, Mina Kimes tweeted maybe Miami becomes a seller after this loss, right? Like they would have been hoping they could get their season back on track, but 2 straight losses with Tua back in the lineup. If they were honestly and objectively looking at their season, they would probably conclude it's not going to happen from here. We still have confidence in this sort of totality as a thing going forward, but there are pieces we could sell now because the season is effectively done.
All right, man. As always, this is just a teaser. Full shows tomorrow morning. We'll do 2 hours and 45 minutes. We always review every single game. We'll touch on everything. and enjoy Sunday Night Football. We got a little Vikings and Colts. But again, tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. sharp, check the mic. We'll be live. So on your way out.